to life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not using it right now.
No, but
yeah.
good for you.
Whatever we're in. I mean, the Capitol's such a weird
It is.
lighting space, but so I just started as our video digital director last session.
Okay.
This is my first full session with our open work. A lot of it started because, or like the budget stuff started because last March, public Congress asked for $9,000 for camera equipment stuff. So then they were like, you guys can spend $9,000. So I was like, great. So we just bought this, and then we had a full comms team, so we were equipping the rest of it.
Okay.
And a handful of software things.
Sure. Great.
So this is the just.
Because they don't give those away.
No,
Is it $3 grand or is it more than that?
no, it's about two.
Not two.
I mean, it's APS-C, right? So it's kind of
Right.
this crazy.
Good.
But it's helped. I mean, and part of it is just because otherwise, if we're taking like a clip off a live stream,
Yeah.
we're doing it with like the Chiron there.
Right.
And stuff. And especially, I mean, a lot of what we're doing is digital and social people stuff.
Sure.
Like, when we're cropping the vertical, if it's from a 7:00 or whatever, like it works for TV, but it's harder for.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work with TV.
Well, there is that too.
Because it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But I swear to God, I want to go in everybody's house and tilt the fucking monitor vertical and watch all their movies done now. I know social media is going to be the death of me.
It is brutal. It is brutal. Yeah. Morning.
She's already thinking of me, and that has been her since she's been 2 years old. I had this story. It's a weird how she was probably, I don't know, she was 3. Her son's out of night. She was talking about this birthday party. I said, she was 30 something. I don't know. She couldn't make it. I don't know, she wasn't planning. What was going on? She said, I can turn like this. I could tell the gears were turning right, so my wife and I knocked this off the rooftop and we went and 90 seconds later, her had the playback. So she was up the gear trying to do it. She goes, oh my God, she was so funny. Her hand, so every time my wife and I said a play around her head, every time her hand would fall. It was so funny. And she's 6 going on. She's 6 going on 13. It's always been Mrs. Mom. Oh my God, every one of her friends and her sister. And there's videos of her. She's done a couple of whatever girls who get up on stage. Yeah, get her in. Okay, she's fine. You see people do that in huh? Yeah. She's young. She's a conversation.
Better to see you.
Oh, lovely. Sounds like
You do right? Okay. Good morning. Minnesotan families deserve to be able to afford their lives and live a good life on an average salary. But for too many families, they're struggling to make ends meet. President Trump has said that affordability is not a real concept, but what we are seeing is that his reckless tariffs have meant $1,700 in costs for the average Minnesota family, and now his misguided war is going to drive up gas prices for Minnesotans too. The Minnesota economy is working just great if you were a corporation or if you were wealthy, but for the average Minnesotan, they are feeling the pinch in their budget every single day. We know that income inequality in our state is getting worse and worse every single year. Now the richest 1% of Minnesotans control 1/3 of all the wealth in our state, while the lowest 50% of income earners only control 5%. So Minnesotans today deserve to be able to have real solutions to the budget challenges that they're facing, and House DFLers are here to meet that challenge. We are going to be proposing today plans to help with the largest categories of family budget that folks are having to deal with every single day at the kitchen table, and that includes the cost of housing, childcare, healthcare, groceries, and energy. And those costs combined are about 2/3 of the average family budget. So today we're going to first hear from Representative Bierman to talk about healthcare costs.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. In one of the wealthiest states in the wealthiest country in the world, we have people foregoing essential health care because of the cost. The healthcare system doesn't make sense for anyone but the people who profit off of it, and it is our duty to address it for all Minnesotans. Healthcare should be more about health than profit. We deserve a system that is accessible, effective, and affordable. We need a health system, not an insurance system. Layers of administration, pharmacy benefit managers, and insurance pull critical decision-making away from patients and providers, increasing costs without producing better health outcomes. That is why my colleagues and I are working on bills to reform our healthcare system. Higher and higher co-pays and out-of-pocket costs and ever higher insurance premiums are not sustainable. We need to move forward toward a universal system. We know Minnesota's healthcare system has a history of leading in this country. Minnesota Care is one example. We can and must do more to address a critical and fundamental need we all share: affordable health care when and where we need it. I talk to a lot of healthcare officials, and what I constantly hear that what is broken and fragmented in our healthcare system arrives in hospital emergency rooms, and that cost gets paid by all of us. We can and must do better. With that, Representative Katiza-Watun.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I'm Carly Katiza-Watun, the DFL chair of the Children and Families Committee in the Minnesota House. It's a hard time to be a parent in Minnesota. I would argue that it's actually even harder to be a kid these days. We are raising our children in a world where the president calls their friends garbage, where Republican policymakers are cutting supplemental nutrition programming and trying to limit whether or not we can use that same money to buy treats for our kids, where there are masked agents surrounding bus stops and childcare centers. Where is the village we were told it all takes to raise a child? Here at the Minnesota House, we can be that village. New and future parents here in Minnesota now know that they have access to paid family leave, but finding childcare is challenging, and finding care you can afford is next to impossible. Young families wanting to build their lives and grow a family are presented with what's an impossible choice: your hopes and dreams or economic stability. And they are waiting longer and longer, putting off families because what they want is unaffordable to do. Minnesotans are looking to us to solve this problem, which is why House DFLers are fighting for no or low-cost universal childcare that would, implement with additional pre-K and community-based childcare for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. At the same time, we're also working to lower grocery costs. I just came from the Commerce Committee where I presented my bill to stop grocery surveillance price gouging, to ensure that our private data is not being used against us at the checkout. This feels like something we should all be able to agree on, right? We want our kids to grow up healthy, happy, strong. The kids are resilient, but if we don't make these investments now, it's very likely that the future is going to be darker than the past. We have the power to make these investments in our Minnesotans now, and we know that every one of us benefits when that happens.
Hi, everybody. I'm Representative Patty Acom. I co-chair the House Energy Committee. And in the energy sector, we're facing a lot of challenges, several of which were unexpected. We're seeing an increased demand for electricity from most notably from data centers, but then also from the electrification of vehicles and buildings. We're seeing impacts from federal actions, the repeal of the renewable tax credits, slow delivery of approved grants, extension of coal plants slated to close within the MISO region, and that's impacting our state ratepayers. And this is playing out in Minnesota in an unfortunate way. Only 1 in 5 qualified Minnesotans actually receive energy assistance. As of January, Minnesotans collectively were more than $129 million past due in gas and electric bills, and almost 100,000 households had their electricity shut off both last year in 2025 and the year before in 2024. So the DFL House is committed to ensuring that Minnesotans have clean, reliable, and affordable energy for all Minnesota residents. The DFL House proposes reducing energy bills by increasing funding for those low-income energy assistance participants, insulating and weatherizing homes. We know that the cheapest energy or the cheapest electricity is that which we don't use, so making homes energy efficient is important. Promoting energy efficiency also for businesses. We want to eliminate obstacles to affordable, renewable energy. We've heard a lot of interest in the balcony solar of our colleague, Representative Kraft. And the DFL proposes holding utilities accountable by removing the ability of utilities to charge Minnesotans for costs like lobbying and excessive executive pay, explicitly stating that affordability is a PUC priority, prevent power and heat shutoffs by supporting families who are struggling to afford their energy bills, and make sure the PUC can punish utilities for poor service. And lastly, limit interim rate increases for our utilities. So those are just some of the things that we'll be working on. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to, Representative Agbaje. My apologies.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. My name is Esther Agbaje, and I represent a House district in Minneapolis. Housing is expensive. It's one of the additional rising costs most Americans and Minnesotans are facing today. In Minnesota, 48% of renters and 20% of homeowners are overburdened by housing, and that means that they're paying more than 30% of their income to their housing. Supply is a factor in the high cost of housing. We do not have enough housing in Minnesota, and we're not building enough. High-end estimates say that Minnesota is missing close to 100,000 units of housing. So we do have opportunities and options to try to increase our housing supply in Minnesota. The high cost of housing and the inability to buy a home is another added stressor for Minnesotans looking for stability. For those who are renting, they are finding that the rent goes up every year while their wages remain the same. Corporate landlords keep getting richer, and renters are the ones that are funding it. Then if you want to move to another apartment, the prices are fixed by algorithms with little to no path for negotiation. People who want to buy a home are finding it more and more out of reach than ever, no matter how much or how long they save. The median price is now $355,000 for a home in Minnesota and $390,000 in the Twin Cities. The average age for a first-time home buyer is 40 years old. One way we want to help free up more housing for individuals and families is to restrict private equity and corporations from buying up single-family homes in Minnesota. Homes are not a commodity for corporations on their spreadsheet. Homes should be where you are able to rest, recharge, and perhaps build some of your own wealth. That bill and others could be passed to address housing affordability. This is what the people of Minnesota want, and this is what they continue to ask of us. And right now, the only people who are standing in their way are greedy corporations who want to have the ability to nickel and dime Minnesotans out of their homes. But we are committed to making sure that housing is in reach for more Minnesotans. And with that, I'll turn it over to Leader Stevenson.
Good morning. House Democrats have as a bedrock principle that we all do better when we all do better. But it's been clear for a long time that in Minnesota, our economy is really just making a small group of people do better. And that was visibly displayed in the budget forecast last week, the state's economic picture got better, but in significant part because of gains among our largest corporations and richest residents. In fact, the most striking slide in that budget presentation was a slide that showed the massive growth in what MMB called non-wage income being a great euphemism for money that rich people make. It means capital gains, dividends, interest, things like that. You know who doesn't make a lot of non-wage income? Teachers, nurses, construction workers, regular people, not to mention all the folks who rely on Medicaid for their health care who are going to lose it because of Donald Trump's terrible bill. DFLers are going to show up and fight for those people. We're going to fight for working people, the people who work hard and play by the rules and do everything they were told to do to succeed, but find that their paycheck doesn't meet the basics any longer, and the deck is stacked against them. We don't think that anyone in Minnesota should have to choose between the drugs they need to live and paying the rent or putting food on the table for their kids. This is one of the wealthiest states and the wealthiest country that has ever existed. No one needs to be making that choice in Minnesota. We hope that Republicans will join us in this work. They can talk a good game about affordability, except for when President Trump says it's a hoax and that groceries is an old-fashioned word. DFLers are going to stand up for Minnesotans, and we'll continue to work to build a future where work is rewarded and families have a real chance to get ahead. And we're happy to answer questions.
How much of this agenda do you guys think is realistic, given the current bottom line for the state?
Well, a lot of the issues that we're tackling today don't have a cost at all. Representative Katiz-Watun had a bill up in the Commerce Committee this morning dealing with surveillance pricing and algorithmic pricing in grocery stores, banning price gouging in grocery stores. Those don't have a significant cost to the state. Representative Agbaje was talking about banning corporate home ownership and algorithmic price fixing of rental properties. Again, there's not a cost to the state there. Beyond that, this is a real crisis for Minnesotans, and we should be prepared to invest state dollars in making sure that Minnesota works for all of its citizens, not just the wealthy and the connected.
If you had to look at spending cuts to make up for maybe some modest price tags and some of these proposals, where do you think your caucus would look?
You know, I think we can take a comprehensive look at the budget, and when we're doing that, we should also look at new revenue for the state. And again, looking at who has benefited from the economy in the short term, and particularly because of the tax bill that Washington passed this summer that gave massive tax cuts to the wealthiest Minnesotans and largest corporations. I think House Democrats are interested in looking at these massive tech companies and social media companies who take a lot from Minnesotans but don't pay very much in taxes. We want to look at all the entire picture.
On the surveillance pricing, it's an interesting bill, for people that coming up this morning committee. Can you just explain that to people at home about, what it is and what it is?
Right. Thank you for the question. So both Representative Greenman and I are working on surveillance pricing bans and prohibition. The grocery one in particular is ensuring that corporations are not taking our personal data from apps, from our purchase history, from our geographic locations, and kind of using AI to predict how much we make, what our household income is, the urgency of any one given purchase, and the other alternatives that we have as a household, right? So it would require facial recognition disclosure in grocery stores. It would disallow electronic shelf label pricing to be changed more than once every 24 hours so that it's not used as surge pricing. And I've had really great conversations with the grocers, with retailers that, who assure me that in most places in Minnesota, these actions are not yet happening. But we know that they are happening at the corporate level. We know that they are investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into this technology just for fun? No. We know that they're investing this money to capitalize on the private data of Minnesotans and folks all across the country. So I want to make sure that we are not taking a look 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road and saying, I wish we woulda, because the future of Minnesota is being written now, and House DFLers can step in and regulate some of this technology before it is too late.
And I would just say, to put a finer point on it, what we're talking about is using massive amounts of data to figure out how much people will pay, and then charging a personal, individualized price to the maximum amount people will pay. And this is happening, as we talked about in groceries, it's happening across the economy. And we know this because they're not telling citizens, they're not telling regulators, they are telling their investors. We know this from investor calls. We know McKinsey said that they're looking to build about 2 to 7% margins. That's just about tailoring prices. And so this is happening. It's happening at Starbucks. It's happening at grocery stores. It's also happening at Target with TVs. And what we know is that people expect one fair price, right? You shouldn't be charged $100 more because you're trying to buy something in the parking lot of Target than you are at home on the same website for the same TV. And so when we talk about how we're protecting consumers and Minnesotans and small businesses, we heard testimony today, small businesses can't compete. The consolidation that's happening in the market is a lot of the reason because of this data, and these models are driving small businesses out of business, and they are making it so that Minnesotans and consumers are paying more, and it's just not fair. And so we can end this in grocery, we can end this today, and I feel like the conversation today in committee got us there.
Republican, I think, approach to affordability is to do tax cuts. They talked about that earlier this week. I wonder if there's any appetite for any of those, including, I think, the most popular is probably no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime.
I think we're going to have a big conversation about federal tax conformity and those specific proposals. And a big part of that question is, how do you pay for it? As I mentioned a minute ago, the federal tax bill was a phenomenal bill if you are extremely wealthy or a large corporation. The proposals you're mentioning that passed on the federal level were time limited. You know, just get through the election and then the federal tax on tips goes back on, right? You have a president who thinks affordability is a hoax. He's just trying to pull the wool over the eyes of average people. We are absolutely open to these conversations, but how are you going to pay for it? Are you willing to do the tough work of looking at the people who really benefited from that federal tax bill and asking them to make sure that the people who are not doing so well get a fair shake? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Should we take that?
Thanks.
But you had supported it.
Yeah, I mean, I generally what and how makes sense for you. Is definitely